Build Your Best Life, with Coach Deborah D. Smith, invites you to our 4th annual virtual Mothers with Sons seminar from Monday, May 8th to Thursday, May 11th, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, each night on Facebook and YouTube. This year's theme is How Mothers Can Reach Sons. Special guests include Anita J. Cummings, Brady Robinson, Anastasia Smith, and Latricia Taylor. These ladies will open their hearts and be transparent as they share how you can reach your sons. This event will heighten your awareness, transform your thinking, and motivate you to reach out to assist your sons and other young men. Visit www.buildyourbestlife.org for more information.
Good evening, everyone. We are here this evening with an awesome man who has come to share with us and to empower us and to make sure that we leave this platform in a different way that we have come. I know that you are expecting Miss Deborah this evening. I am sorry to disappoint, but hopefully it will not be too much of a disappointment because she is not well today. So We will keep her in our hearts. We will keep her in our prayers. And we will hope that all is well with her, even at the end of this broadcast, that everything will be well and that she will receive full recovery 100%. But in the interim, you have me, Anastasia Smith. Our guest this evening is Pastor Franky Camille. Say hello, everybody, Pastor Camille.
Hello, everyone. Hello. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So we are going to continue on with Miss Deborah's theme for the month of April, which is reaching out for awareness. Now, this evening, the intention is to speak on what's going on. I again want to welcome you to Build Your Best Life. I'm excited for you to share with our general audience on who you are and what it is that you are doing through ministry in your community. And we know that we start out with our community, but the reach that is able to be achieved by the small things that we start out with, it can be phenomenal. So, the world as we see it today vastly differs from what it was 40, 30, or even 20 years ago. The number one cause of death for youth and young adults is due to some conditions people weren't concerned with. A lot of times considering both of us are Bahamian, we are a part of this Bahamian culture. You know, we have this sweep under the rug mentality, this hide it in the closet mentality. As long as it stays in the closet or it stays under the rug, you know, it doesn't exist and nobody has to know about it. We don't talk about it. But our youth today are greatly affected by these type of things because they are not growing up with the mentality that we grew up with, whereas, you know, it was kind of feed into us to make sure that we left everything in the closet.
Yes.
Today's generation, they have so much access to information, so much freedom of sharing that they are a lot more knowledgeable about what's going on, not only what would be happening on our little 21/7, but worldwide. They are fully exposed, fully aware, and just out there chock full of information, and not only receiving information, but sharing information also. What is your thought on this, Pastor Camille?
Yes. We live in a time where our young people are exposed to so much. Back when I was young, the only thing we probably was exposed to was a little bit of television, a little bit of cable TV, and hopscotch. We used to play outside. But now these kids have the world at their fingertips, and they are not like how we were. They explore them more. They don't accept anything. They tend to be more creative, tend to want to explore, and they tend to want to challenge also the knowledge of the older person. So we're living in a world where we really need to cater towards the young people and get their energy, harness that energy that they have, and put
Mhm.
it towards something positive.
We truly do. I know that a few of the causes of injuries has been self-harm. It's been death among adolescents has been contribute a lot to road traffic injuries, to drowning, to all sorts of things. Like youth are exposed to so much violence, drugs, sex, fake personas. You wouldn't think that that would be something that is so detrimental to a person. But what I do realize is that for most younger children, they have not created that separation between reality and falsehood. What's the difference between, you know, what they're seeing on TV and what they're seeing on social media and what people are even portraying as their real lives and what is actually happening in their worlds, you know? And so when it is that they see that a certain type of lifestyle is able to give you a certain amount of wealth or amount of popularity or things like that, They don't know the background story of what's really happening with those people and how they are achieving what they're achieving and the cost of what it is that they're achieving. And when it is that they actually start to find that type of thing out, it even increases the rate of suicide when they are trying to reach this goal and they're trying to get to where they're seeing other persons are and realize that they can't do it in an honest way. Their morals are still standing in their way. They're not willing to get down to the mat, get down to the dirt like some people are in order to achieve certain things. And it can mess with your mental health a little bit. It can, put you in a place of unease and disappointment and depression. Depression is a huge thing amongst our youngsters these days. Pastor Camille, what have you been seeing amongst our young people?
I think the number one issue, and many persons may not see it um, because it's not obvious, the number one issue is rejection. A lot of young persons suffer from rejection. And so to try to fill that void, to try to be accepted, they end up doing a whole lot of things simply because they want to be accepted. If you look at the gang violence amongst young boys, in the Bahamas we have a number of gangs. Those gangs are made up of young people, not old people, young people who doesn't have a father, who doesn't have a mentor. There's no accountability at home. For the most part, some of them, not all, are being raised in single parents home where the mother is trying her best to provide and take care of that child. And so many of the young persons are suffering from a case of rejection. They're looking for love, and they're looking for love in all of the wrong places. And so they go to the bar, they drink, they party, and then they make these decisions without thinking about the consequences. And those decisions that they make end up costing them their freedom, their and worst case scenario, it costs them their lives. And so we have to get to a point where we have to accept ourselves. Young persons have to accept themselves. So who God have given them, who God has made them. And I think it's a matter of having a vision for their lives. They need to have a vision, and they need to have mentorship and people in place to direct and steer them in the right direction. So where there is no acceptance, where there is no love, young people tend to venture into all kinds of other means in order to find that love and find that acceptance, even if it means suicide and all of these other things.
And it is so unfortunate because when that type of thought enters a young person's head, as you said, they're not thinking about the consequences of. There was a show on Netflix about maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, called 13 Reasons Why. And when I sat through that series, the series was only about 14 episodes. But when I sat through that series, it went through the suicide of a young lady named Hannah Baker. And when she did what she did, she recorded a cassette tape. And on each side, she listed the reasons why, and she addressed those reasons to the persons around her that she felt probably could have prevented it, or their actions pushed her further into making the decision, or whatever the reasoning was. And in all of it, she did not think of the consequences of, because she did not think about the pain that she would be leaving her parents to deal with. She didn't think of the depression that she would be leaving her friends to deal with. Also, in recording those videos, those audio tapes and everything, you're not only giving them the question of why it is that she did it, but you're also telling them, listen, you are a part of my reason why. And so they then now have to live with knowing that this one thing that they did that may have been insignificant to them in that moment was something that made a huge impact on her and took her a step further and a step closer to making the decision that she made. And I think that a lot of young persons, if they're able to open up and speak to someone that is able to tell them, listen, this is your moment now, but beyond this moment is something else. Beyond this moment comes more. I'm sure that you can give us story after story of those silly things that we've done in our youth, those silly things that you've done in your youth that you thought that you would never be able to overcome, that embarrassing moment that you had with your mom or your dad when your older sibling did something crazy in the front of the other cousins and you thought that you would never live past it. And look at us out here living. We out here living. We still thriving. We're still doing things and carrying on. And I believe that if the young people would have at least one person in their corner to say, you know what, think beyond this moment, then maybe there would be a lot more lives saved, you know?
And we
But there
still
are a
do
lot,
some things even as adults.
of course, hindsight is 2020. So, looking back on it, it's like, really? I was crying for 3 days over this boy? Seriously? He wasn't
Yeah.
even that cute. Of course, hindsight is 2020, but in the moment, it's a lot to deal with. I believe that we also need to ensure that we do not disregard the feelings that they are going through in the moment of them. It's important that young people feel seen and feel heard in the moment and that they are met where they are because, they're not 40, 50, 90 years old yet. They're still 13, 15, 16. And so in that moment, it's a big deal. What's your thought on that, Pastor Camille?
Yes, I've learned that adolescents are people, or children are actually people. They're people with real feelings, with real emotions. Sometimes we discount young people and we don't allow them to express themselves. Or when they express themselves, we take authority and we say, okay, I'm the authority figure here, and so what I say must go. And even I'm learning now, even as a father, when I'm dealing with my daughter, I'm learning to listen to her. I'm learning to be more patient with her. I'm learning the way that she communicates, because she communicates very clearly. She'll do something and then she'll explain, okay, daddy, this is why I did what I did. And then instead of me, reprimanding her all of the time, I tend to listen and try to figure out, did she intentionally do this or did she miss and do this? And so a lot of times there is a miscommunication. And so young people don't know how to express themselves. They don't know how to express anger, because when they express anger, all of a sudden now, okay, they're rude, they're disrespectful, they're out of order. But when they go into the world and they go amongst their friends, they can express themselves.
Right.
Many times we could find out what's happening with them and help them if we understand something is going on behind the emotion. There is always something behind every emotion. So not every time a child acts out means that they're being rude. And I had to learn that not every time a child does something bad or throw down a chair means that child is rude. That child is acting out something. He's trying to tell you something. And so we need to be more concerned about the well-being of the child. We need to be more concerned about the overall issues. And sometimes we have to face reality. Sometimes we mess up. Sometimes it is us that makes the mistake. And many times I discovered sometimes I mess up as a father. I mess up really, really bad. And then I have to go back and I have to say, you know what? Yeah, I should not have screamed. I should not have shouted. And maybe I handled this the wrong way. Maybe I was a little too harsh. Or maybe I could have done it this way or that way. Sometimes we are the problem. The adults are the problem. And so these children are coming from an environment. They're coming from different environments with different issues. And so we cannot classify everyone in the same in the same light as this child, because we don't know what environment that child is coming from. And so we have to be sensitive because they are humans. I'm learning that. They are little humans. And they're gonna grow up to be big humans. But if we can handle them when they're little, and if we can nurture them when they're little, then when they are big, we don't have to be worrying about locking our doors. We don't have to be worrying about, oh, I wonder, locking our cars. We don't have to worry about our safety, because the same young persons that be passing by every day, one day they're gonna grow up to be adults. They are the future. They are the future. And if we want a good future, the best place to start is helping in the development of our young people. It is something that you have to take so seriously because of what is happening nowadays. Everything seems to be at their disposal. Everything is on the internet. They have access to everything. They have friends. You cannot lie to them. You can't even compete with what is happening in terms of the amount of information and the amount of influences that they are going through. But I've learned this. If you can show them respect and they see that you genuinely concerned and you love them, that will go a longer way than you trying to assert your authority over them. I think there's an old adage that says you have to bend the tree when it's
While it's
young.
young. Yeah.
Yes, bend the tree while it's young. Now I tried to bend a coconut tree the other day, and that didn't work. It didn't work. It was too strong. It was rooted already. There was nothing I could have done. I tried to bend that tree. I don't know if you've ever tried to do that exercise and see if you can knock down a coconut tree. No, you cannot. Not a full grown
Listen,
tree.
they
But
told us about bending the tree. They did not tell us what type of tree we were supposed to use, okay? Because you know the industry that I am in. I am in education. Now you are now in education, formerly in law enforcement, correct?
yes,
So for both aspects of it, you know that there are different types of trees when it
yes,
comes to bending,
yes,
because there are some that they start out small and frail and you can get them to twist and move in whatever way you need, and then there are those coconut trees that come strong. They came with intentions to drop all kind of leaves and coconuts all over your yard, and there's nothing else you could do about it unless you uproot it and kill it. And that's what it is. But you said a few significant things that I heard in your statement. And the first part that I took was saying sorry. When you said that, there are times when you as the adult, you as the parent, have to step back in your own reflection and say, you know what? Maybe I didn't have to say it this way. Maybe I didn't have to do it this way. You have your own come to Jesus moments, and you're able to say to yourself, with the Holy Spirit whispering in your ear that, you know what? Maybe I could have taken a different approach. And I think that is so important for other people to hear and for other people to know that adults are wrong sometimes.
yes.
Absolutely, we are wrong sometimes. I've had a student who, and I'm definitely gonna tell this story now that I remember who. I had a student who he bumped his knee while he was coming out of the classroom. Now he had a scab on his knee already. He had a bad habit of picking at the scab. And so it just, every time it starts to heal and the scab gets itchy, he picks at it and then it starts bleeding all over again. And so he starts the process. So he started bleeding. His teacher thought that he picked at it again because that's been his usual behavior, not knowing that the Sunday before, his mom had already chastised him for picking at it. And so he had already gotten his punishment and everything. He already knew not to do it anymore. But in this time, he actually just bumped his knee against the desk and it opened the scab again.
Wow.
Now, all she saw was, listen to me, I know that you're a picker and I see blood again. What? Go inside. You are messing with this cut. I keep on telling you about it. But when he got inside to me, he says, but Miss Daisha, I didn't even do that. I'm like, okay then, tell me what it is that you did. And so when he explained it to me, I'm like, okay, come, we're going to tell your teacher exactly what it is that happened. So when he explained himself to her and told her what happened, there was nothing else she could do but tell him sorry. Now, in some instances, when your pride gets to you, you're like, oh, well, you shouldn't have been messing with it anyhow. Or we're going to deflect. We're going to change the topic a little bit. We're going to do the blame game. I send you to the office. I send you inside because you always picking at it. No, you step back a second. You accept the information that's coming to you, even if it's from a 3-year-old, and you move forward with an apology. Their feelings need to be validated. They need to be seen. They need to be heard. And that is from the littlest one to the oldest. And then there was another thing that you said. These little humans are going to become big humans eventually.
Yep.
That was powerful. I think you need to take just another minute or two on that one so that we can really get the full scope of it. Because right now you are on the educator side of it. And so you are a part of the molding process. And for those that don't know, you can let them know your background, both in education and also in law enforcement, because, clearly I'm already aware. But we're going to make sure that the audience is able to follow properly and follow carefully and to know the wealth of knowledge that is contained within you. So from the educator side of you now, that is a part of the molding process, to the law enforcement side of you that gets to see the end result of if that molding is not done properly. Let's hear from that.
I served as a police officer for 8 years, 8 years on the Royal Bahamas Police Force. I served in various divisions. I served in a band. I served in a courtroom. And so I got to see a spectrum of everything from the child, from the young child who's being rude, from abuse cases, murder, violence. I got to experience all of that within those 8 years, and I got to see a lot of things. Okay, and then I went into education. Education was always my heart. The law enforcement side, by the time law enforcement gets involved, I think it's a bit too late. It's a bit too late because now all the law enforcement is doing now is forcing that child to behave a certain way or trying to restrain a certain behavior to protect society. And that's why I said that little human, that little baby, that little child is going to grow up to become someone. But we have an investment in children. And I think we need to notice, we need to understand that we have an investment that we must make in the future. If we want a better future, we must start with the young people. I could remember holding a child. I was in grade 12. I remember holding a child, and she was about 2 years old. 20 years later, I looked at that same child, and the child now is an adult. There was another child that when he was younger, I met him. He was a young, about 4 or 5, and he was beating the drums. And I said, my goodness, he is going to be an awesome musician one of these days. He is going to be awesome. And I saw him a few days ago, and he was playing the drums, he's playing the piano, and he is almost now 18 years old. What am I saying? Our children now are not going to be children forever. So the issues that they have now, if we don't deal with those issues now, then somewhere along the line, we'll have to deal with the issues tomorrow. If we sweep everything under the rug now, we'll have to sweep everything under the rug tomorrow. And so I ventured to go into education because now I can play a role in really mentoring and helping the young men and young ladies to become what God has called them to become. And I think that is my calling, really to look at that child, because every child has a gift. To look at that child and say, you know what? Let me see if I can figure out what gifting, what area of that child's life I can impact, I can mold in order for her to figure out what her destiny is. And I think that is crucial. The children of today will not be the same children of tomorrow. They're going to grow up and they're going to be adults. And we must. Everyone has a role to play in ensuring that our kids prosper and ensuring that our kids become the very best that they can become. Likewise, the children that we neglect now and the children that have behavioral issues now, they're going to grow up. They're going to grow up. And that is when, we'll have to go to my former job and call 911 and call the police. And by that time that happens, sometimes it's really, really, really too late. It's really, really too late. And so all of us, we really care about our nation and really care about the young people. It starts in the classroom. It starts with them. In addition to that, the millions of dollars we're spending on national security, we could save a lot. We could save millions of dollars by investing in the young people. Because if you invest in them, you won't need bulletproof vests and these fancy police cars and all of these equipment. You won't need any of that. But as long as we look at our young people as just, okay, they're just little, they're just, children. As long as we look at them as just children and we don't look at them as the future, then we get in trouble. Because one day I'm going to get old and I'm going to need to go to the doctor. And who's going to treat me? One of those same children that I would have taught in the class. One of these days, someone might be breaking my house and I may need to call the police. And who's going to come to my aid? One of those same children that I used to teach. And so we have to be very careful how we manage and how we treat the next generation.
You are so correct, Pastor Camille. And as we sit here and we talk about what's going on, and we're trying to figure out what's going on with our youth and what's going on with our kids, those of you that are joining us, I see we have Agnes Copeland. I see we have Pastor Dan Smith. He is the #1 cheerleader of Build Your Best Life. Hey there, Pastor Dan. We have Stephanie Daly. And those of you that are joining in and tuning in with us late, don't worry about it. You're going to be able to catch the rebroadcast. But I want you to think of that young person that needs to hear this message. I want you to think of that older person that needs to hear this message. I want you to think of that person that you're not sure of where their life is going and what's going to happen with them, but this may be the message that they need to hear. You click that like button, you click that share button, you make sure that you send this video out to everyone that needs it, that could possibly need it, that definitely need it, and those that you're not even sure of. But, let's just share it with them anyways, right? Okay, so we were talking about the youth and them growing up and sowing into them as little kids so that we can see how they're going to turn out when they get older and reaping the benefits of their growth and development later on in their lives. But we can also look at the mass shootings that have been going on. And we can look at how regular they have become and how frequent they are. And the changes in location, the changes in motive, the changes in target, the persons that are actually the victims of these situations. And, it's amazing. You also mentioned earlier that, the young people these days have everything at their disposal. They have access to a wealth of information. They have access to materials that we did not even have in our mind to be created. They have access to it. They have an ability to purchase and gain ownership of a whole vast variety of things, which is a part of the issue with these mass shootings at primary schools, preschool, elementary. preschools, at grocery stores, at movie theaters. I mean, what is your take on all of these mass shootings? What could be the root? What could be the problem? Why is all of this happening?
Well, first of all, where there is no respect for God, one, there's no fear of God, there's no conviction. People will do anything that comes to their mind, so to speak. And not everyone has the ability to separate their thoughts from their actions. And so I think the first thing we have to understand is we live in a dangerous world. We live in a world that's not safe for everyone. We live in a world where there is real danger. The second thing is, in terms of the gun laws in the United States, their citizens have a very easy access to powerful weapons, weapons that can in seconds take the lives of many people. And so and the ease by which they have access to these weapons, and they're getting weapons, they're not being the person buying the weapon is not being evaluated. He's not being restricted in any way. He's free to carry weapons around. And so, how do you restrain a mind that has already made up in their mind that I'm going to take human life, and at the same time give them ease or the ability to get the weapons? And I think that is the issue. The issue is not everyone is qualified or should be qualified to carry automatic weapons or even weapons around in any society. It's not good. And where there is no respect for human life, people tend to do whatever comes to their minds. And so there needs to be a restriction on the ability of persons to get these weapons because lives are being lost. And so I think you you cannot restrain someone mentally who have already made up in their minds that they're going to commit a crime. There's nothing you can do to even stop them, but you can make it difficult for them to gain access to the weapons that they need to carry on these mass shootings. And so I think better gun laws need to be put in place in the United States, and less access to these weapons. It will truly assist. In addition to that, parents have a role to play. Parents
Okay.
have a role to play. Most of these, the last shooting that I know of in the United States, previous one, where the young persons got shot. The mother called the police and reported the son because she knew that the son was going to do something terrible. Okay, she knew. My thing is, why did she wait so long? So parents have a role to play. Either either you're gonna raise up your child in the fear of God, or you're gonna raise up your child to respect human life and dignity, or you simply gonna let the child do what it wants to do. Where there is too much freedom, where there's no restriction on your freedom, children tend or people tend to abuse that freedom. And so I believe that parents starts everything starts with the family. It starts at home. It starts at home. If we raise our children to be godly, if we raise our children to respect simple values, if we raise our children to honor father and mother, then they will not venture off into the world and to the extreme to take human life. So there's a failure in parenting. There's a total failure in terms of parenting. And parents need to be held responsible for the actions of their children. In the Eastern society, in the Eastern world, there's something called honor, where they take honor so seriously that when you do something, they don't they look at that as the entire family, the reputation of the entire family is at jeopardy for the community. But nowadays, when children do wrong, we don't know who the parents are. In most cases, sometimes the children don't know who their parents are. They don't know who the father is. They don't know who the mother is. And so we will continue to see these kind of things happening until the authorities see it fit to restrict persons from getting the weapons to commit these crimes. And parents you cannot escape the rule. If you have a child, it is your responsibility to raise up that child to respect human life.
Okay, now, Pastor Camille, I'm gonna have to play devil's advocate on you, okay? I'm gonna have to do it. I have to. So you mentioned that, in the U.S. particularly, because the gun laws here in the Bahamas are a bit different. They are significantly different as far as the type of firearms that you're able to have, licensing process, that type of thing. We have different procedures. I'm not saying better. I'm not saying worse. I'm just saying different.
Mm.
Now, you said that the U.S. government needs to take more steps as far as evaluating who it is that they are giving this freedom of access to. And my question then would be, how far should the government be able to go with their evaluation, restriction, or their determinations as to who is able to have it and who isn't? Because a part of what the U.S. is fighting for is equality along all bases. So in times past, they would have had only American or Aryan white men that were able to carry guns. And then it moved into freedom of Black persons, and then their ability to defend themselves from their oppressors outside of military situations, of course, but their ability to bear arms in order to be able to protect themselves, protect their family, protect their homes, all of that. And then it went into the freedom of women, the rights of women. And women are able to bear arms, and we are able to say, listen, don't play with me because I have a little 9 on me. Her name is Sheba, and you don't want to go there. Women were enabled to bear arms and be able to do those sorts of things also. In each of those categories, there would be persons who can be deemed irresponsible with a firearm. There were irresponsible white men, there were irresponsible Black men, there are some irresponsible females. I'm sorry, women, I'm usually with you, but we have to be honest here. We got to look at all sides. And then, of course, there are the younger persons who have not yet lived enough life, had enough thought process and experiences to be deemed responsible for that type of material. So how would you recommend that the government take other steps or other measures to be able to determine who would be able to carry and who would not be able to carry? And with that thought also, with your response, I want you to remember, we live in the Bahamas. So there's always that someone who is a friend of somebody and somebody's cousin. And, if I give you a little $3,000, you could get this paperwork sorted out. So, that's always in the back of your mind. But to speak to the government taking more steps and being a bit more cautious in their just free distribution of these type of materials, what would be your recommendation?
Well, I'll put it like this: when I wanted to go to the United States to study, to get my master's, one of the things that the government of the United States required was a visa, a student visa. And that student visa required certain stipulations. You needed certain documentation. You needed to prove that you're studying in the United States for them to grant you the visa, because the government wants to know who is coming into their country, what kind of individual this is, and if this person is a threat to the national security.
Yeah.
Now, if the U.S. government had that wisdom that they use a U.S. visa, now U.S. visa, and then I had to go through the process of an interview. I had to sit down and I had to speak to the representative, and I had to say, okay, I'm going to school, I'll be back, and they did the necessary background checks, and then they issued me a student visa. Okay, now they went through all of that
Yeah.
before they grant me access to a school, before they allow me into their country. They went through all of that because of a perceived threat to their overall national security.
Yes.
Now, if they have that sufficient wisdom to do that for a stranger, someone that is outside of their boundaries, I think they should apply that same standard to their citizens in terms of gaining a weapon that can take human life.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying do not give them the weapon, but ensure that every person that you give the weapon to is responsible enough to carry the weapon, because the weapon can potentially take a human life, which is a national security threat. And so it tells me then that their concern isn't so much about national security, but their concern is more about, let me see how many guns I can sell. Because the gun lobbyists, they're paying us big bucks. And because they're paying us big bucks, like you said, same thing apply over here, right? You pay big bucks, the politicians do what they want you to do. But I find it so strange that I had to get two visas. I had a traveling visa. So I
Mhm.
said, okay, I could just go and do school. But they said, no, 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 no. You need a
Mhm.
student visa. So I
Mhm.
needed another visa to go on a plane, go to their school to study, just to
Mhm.
study,
Mhm.
just to study. So if I need a visa to study versus someone that has a weapon that can take human life, they need to have a visa too, a gun visa.
And I will take this moment to give the disclaimer that the views and thoughts expressed on this stream this evening by Pastor Camille and also by Miss Anastasia Smith are not entirely a representation of Build Your Best Life and those associated with this program. But that was very interesting. It was very, very interesting. I am going to have to play devil's advocate again.
Hmm.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So you also mentioned parents being held accountable for the actions of their children, and everything starting out within the home, and that then spilling off into the rest of society. So do you feel greatly enough in that point to also feel and believe that parents should do some of the either the jail time or pay the fine, or maybe even a combination of both, even if it is the community service or whatever the repercussions are for the actions of their kids? Do you believe that parents should share in the punishment that is being given from the actions of their kids?
Okay, I'll put it like this. I'll give you an example. If you're driving a car, let's say you have a nice car. Let's say it's a Honda. You're driving a nice black Honda, and and something. No, no,
Because
no.
you're giving me flashbacks. Don't forget, somebody hit my nice black Honda. You're giving me flashbacks here. It's a little bit of PTSD, but I'll allow you to finish. You can go ahead, sir.
You drive a nice white. You drive a nice white Honda, and something goes wrong. Let's say the brakes, something act up, and something goes wrong, and you end up hitting another vehicle. It isn't your fault per se because something went wrong within your car and you hit another vehicle. Who is responsible for fixing the damages of the other person's vehicle if the accident was your fault?
I am.
So you will be.
Mm.
That child that you brought into this world until it attained a certain age is your responsibility. It simply means that whatever that child does, you are to be held accountable for that child because that child is not considered an adult as yet. Even if the child does something outside of your knowledge or outside of something that you would permit that child to do, you should still be responsible for the actions of that child. What happens is most times you have parents who are not accountable. They are not taking their role as parents seriously, and no one is holding them accountable for anything. They're simply having children, and for the most part, some ship the children to the Grammy, some ship the children to the Annie, some ship the children to the family island, and the child is raising up itself. And when that happens, something goes wrong. Then we have no one because the child can't get locked up per se. Okay, the child isn't by law. The child isn't accountable for all of its actions. So who is? So someone has to be held responsible. Someone has to be held responsible. Someone carried the child for 9 months and someone provided the seed by which the child was conceived. And I think the culture of let's just have fun, the culture of let's just party, the culture of let's just enjoy ourselves. And if you get pregnant, you get pregnant, so what? And we bring children into this world and we take no responsibility. We leave them to raise themselves and we don't plan for the future. We plan for vacation, but we never plan for this child. And when that happens, that child will become whatever someone else perceived that child to be. And I think the number one issue that we're facing in the world is a parent crisis because we have parents who are not concerned about their children. 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, a child is walking the streets. 12 o'clock in the night, the child is in the nightclub. The child is smoking. The child is in the... And it seems as if the child now is running the household.
Mm-hmm.
And so parents, it may sound harsh and it may sound reasonable to some, but that child belongs to you. It is your baby. That's a same little sweet baby. That's your baby. That is your responsibility. And if something goes wrong, it is up to you to make sure someone has to take responsibility. The child cannot. Therefore, the parent should be held 100% accountable for what the children do. And maybe then, will they ensure if I knew that I may get locked up if my child out at a certain time, 9 out of 10, that child could be in my house. I think parents need parenting. I think that is the issue. We need parents need parenting, and parents need to take a course on how to be a parent so that these issues that we're having now would be less and less, and so that children now would grow up with a sense of responsibility and a sense of accountability. I think that is the issue. That The reality is everything we do has a consequence. Whether it's good or bad, there is a consequence, and there is no change in that. There's no change. You cannot change consequences until you change the action. And I think we want good consequences. We want a nice society. We want a safe society. We want all of this beautiful heaven. But at the same time, no one wants to take responsibility and accountability for what is happening, and we keep passing it on. The parents pass it on to the educators, then the educators pass it on to the police, and the police pass it on to the prison. Keep going there and there and there, and then the final destination for some end up in the grave. And so we have to be very, 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 very cautious how we go about parenting and raising up our children.
And again, I will say that the views, thoughts, and expressions that have been given by Pastor Camille and also by Miss Anastasia Smith are not exactly or in its entirety the viewpoint of Build Your Best Life and those associated with this platform. But Miss Deborah will be the one to speak to that. I think we're going to leave that for her to speak to. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, don't be afraid to put them in the chat. I see that we have a few more persons that have joined us. Thank you so much for coming in. And what we're going to look at next, very briefly, is in all that you've said in regard to parents and their roles in raising children and the effects of the outcome of these children, these little persons that become adults. We also cannot go too far without considering their mental health. I touched on it a little bit earlier, when we were talking about being able to say sorry to them, and sometimes we do things that we're not supposed to do. You touched on it also. But we do not, as adults, typically think too deeply or invest too deeply into a young person's mental health, their mental stability. In 2020, less than 16,000 deaths were related to homicides, while over 42,000 were due to suicide in America. Let me say that again. I need you to let that sink in. In 2020, remember 2020 wasn't a real year. Like we skip over that, boom, 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 and then we just land in 2022. But in 2020, less than 16,000 deaths were related to homicides. However, over 42,000 deaths were due to suicide. What can you give us on mental health at this point, Pastor Camille?
I think that is one of the issues that even the church doesn't quite address. These kids are coming from various backgrounds, and some don't have the capacity or the ability to even begin to cope with what they are experiencing and what they are going through. Many kids, they go through cycle of abuse where they're being physically abused, they're being sexually abused, they're being abused emotionally. Okay, many kids struggle with their self-esteem. They struggle with their self-worth. They struggle trying to find meaning. They're trying to navigate through different systems of thoughts. They struggle with who they are. They question their existence. They're struggling with being rejected. And all of these issues keep coming up and coming up and coming up in various ways. And so they express it in anger. They express it by not wanting to be certain places. They express it through rebellion. But inside, they're hurting. Inside, they're suffering. Inside, they're trying to find meaning. They're trying to find hope. Inside, they're trying to find an avenue by which to express themselves. I remember when I was 12 years old, and I hated my life at, at age 12 because I was trying to figure out, where's my daddy? Why doesn't my daddy want me? Okay, why do I have to go through this? Why do I look like, I hated the way I look. When I look in the mirror, I hated what I saw. And I was just tired. I just didn't want to live at age 12. I didn't want to live anymore. And I took some pills and I said, you know what? I'm gonna take these pills and I'm gonna die, and I don't want to be here anymore. And I took those pills. I don't know what pills they were. I took the pills and I woke up the next day and I got over it. So sometimes the feelings and the emotions are very much temporary. They're very much temporary and not there to stay. But if the young persons don't have anyone to confide in, they don't have anyone to talk to, they don't have anyone they can trust, then there is no intervention. And so what's happening, the young persons are keeping everything on the inside. They're not expressing it. And then when they finally do express it, it is too late. 42,000 people, young people, or people committed suicide versus 16,000 to homicide. That is a tragedy because suicide is preventable. And so we have to be careful what we speak. Sometimes we speak certain things into existence in our children. There was a research that was done in terms of someone speaking to a plant. Every morning they would say good things to the plant, nice things. Oh, plant, you're beautiful. Plant, you look good. Plant, And then another study was done where they would say bad things to the plant. And after about 3 weeks of speaking just negative thoughts, that they just spoke death to the plant. Oh, plant, die. The plant actually died. The plant did not live. It was a plant. So imagine the damage that we are causing on children when we speak certain things into their lives, when we say certain things about them, when we negate them, when we treat them as if they don't count, when we treat them as if we don't love them, when we reject them. All of that plays a role. Suicide is only the consequence. That's the result of something much deeper, much, much deeper. And sometimes we need to take time in our families, sit down and talk about the trauma, the issues, the trauma. Many young persons, they're going through trauma. They're trying to focus, but the trauma keep coming back. They're trying to get through one stage in their lives, but they're traumatized by hurt, by pain, by rejection, by abuse, by challenges, and some get caught up in relationship between mommy and daddy. They get caught up in that, especially if they're not together or if they're fighting, they get caught up in all of that. And all of those issues, you'll be surprised to know what a 12-year-old or 11-year-old would have experienced over the course of their lives, what they have to go through. And so we have to provide an avenue by which they can be themselves. And the church is there. The church is one of those avenues, and ministries are there. Certain ministries, dance ministries, music ministries, youth ministries, they are important because molding and ensuring that the children and the young persons have a place to express themselves, have a place where they can be themselves. And I think we need to take the mental health of children seriously, not because they're a child means that we can talk to them as we please. Not because they're a child means that we can say whatever we want to say about them. I'm very careful how I speak to other people's children as well as mine. I'm very careful because I understand that my words have power. And I think if we pay more attention to how we speak, how we interact with people, and try to understand what is happening behind all of the emotions, behind the feelings, behind the anger, behind all of the drama that may be happening, if we sit down and just have a conversation, imagine how many lives we can save. And so mental health is just as important as physical and spiritual health. They all play a role. Sometimes we need to talk to somebody. Even as adults, we need to talk to someone. Sometimes things happen and we just need to, say, you know what? Let me talk this through. Let me confide. Let me express this rather than holding it all in. And this, we're fighting for our future. We're fighting for our future. So when the young people are killing themselves, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And so they need to be loved. Everyone deserves to be loved. Whether you wanted the child or not, whether the child is here, whether the daddy and the mommy together, that child deserves to be loved. That child deserves to be accepted. That child deserves to be heard. That child deserves to be treated like a human being. And that child deserves to be taken care of. And that child deserves your undivided attention. I think we could save a lot of lives if we just took the time and show care, show genuine love. There was a time, especially in our society, when we used to look out for one another. There was a time when if we saw something happening, we would warn the person. There was a time when young persons couldn't curse and walk the street cursing because by the time they get home, daddy or mommy would have already found out about it. So some of the things that are happening now with our young people is it's a case of neglect. We're neglecting them. Their parents are neglecting them, and they're just there to fend for themselves, and they cannot survive in the world all by themselves. And that is one of the reasons why they give up. It's just too much for them. But there is also hope when there is life. And I think that's one of the things that we have to tell them. There's hope. Despite the tragedy, despite your mommy might have died, your daddy might have died, you may not have nowhere to live. You may be from one family member to the next. There is hope. And if they can hold on to hope, then they can push through those suicidal thoughts. They're real thoughts. They're real thoughts. And many times we perceive people as weak. We say, oh, they weak. You having those thoughts? You weak, man. You weak. No. All of us at some point have different kinds of challenges. But that doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you're human. And we need to reach out to them.
I believe that you have ended on such a strong note for this evening's broadcast, Pastor Camille. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. At the end of it all, we must remember that with each rising of the sun, it means that there is still hope. As long as you are still on this earth, you have not died of natural causes. Nobody has taken your life away from you. It means that you are protected, you are loved, and that there is still a promise on your life that has not been fulfilled as yet. And so, taking your own life and depriving the world of the person that you are or the person that you would become, it is such a detriment. And it is such a disservice to all of us that will be left behind to have to face the rest of this world without you.
Yes.
So as we've said, if there's anyone that you think, feel, believe that would be able to glean anything from this message this evening, make sure that you hit the like button, make sure that you share, make sure that you put this out there, and make sure that the message is heard. It has been so wonderful having you this evening, Pastor Camille. I believe that this is absolutely the most words I've heard from you in all of my years of knowing you and being around you. This is definitely, it has definitely been a wonderful experience getting to have this conversation with you. We are still hopeful that Miss Deborah is doing better, feeling better. I see that she has popped a few comments in there. She's making sure that we are good. Miss Deborah, I hope that we made you proud this evening. And Pastor Camille, if there are any other tips that you would like to give us on helping youth gain self-confidence, or your closing thoughts on our topic this evening, which was what's going on. Would you like to share them with us?
Yes, I would say to everyone that's listening to me, particularly the young persons, you are valuable. Scripture says that we were wonderfully and fearfully made. Develop a vision. Have a vision. Always have a vision of where you want to go. Always have a vision of what it is that you want to accomplish, and work on that vision every single day. And I guarantee you, one day that vision is going to come to pass. Vision sustains life, it gives purpose, it grows purpose. With vision comes purpose. And when there is a purpose on your life, and when you have a clear vision, it doesn't matter the circumstances, it doesn't matter what happened, it doesn't matter what people may think. You can and you will accomplish those goals that you have. So I would say keep pushing, keep striving, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Believe you are gifted. All of us have a gift that we have to give to the world. And I hope that there's no one listening now that feel as if they have to take away that gift or take away their lives, because you will be depriving the world of a beautiful and wonderful gift. And so I urge you to continue to build your best life. Build your best life. Build your best life. And guess what? Nobody can stop you. No one can stop you. No obstacles can stop you. No situations can stop you. As long as you believe that you can build your best life, you can do it. And you will do it by the grace of God. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this podcast and being here on tonight. Thank you for this is a wonderful experience. I can't wait to do this again. Thank
Do you
you.
want to give the listening audience the means in which they can contact you if anybody wants to speak with you after the streaming, or if they want to reach out to you for another opportunity such as this? You can give them a way to reach you.
Yes, if anyone wants to reach me, want to speak to me, you can reach me at 465-4443. Also, you can find me on Facebook, Franky Camille. Facebook, Franky Camille. You can find me on Facebook and send a Facebook message, or I'll add you or send a friend request, and I'll add you, Franky Camille. Just type it in and it should pop up. I'm the only Franky Camille in the entire world. There is no other Franky Camille. Praise the Lord for that. So you can reach me on Facebook, Franky, FRNKY CAMILLE, or you can reach me at my cell phone number. I'm always online, always available to take your calls at 465-4443. And if you are in the States, I think it's 242. You know, that's a 242, Bahamas. 242-465-4443. Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us this evening. In her absence, you can see down at the bottom on the banner that Miss Deborah can be reached through YouTube. She can be reached through Facebook. She can be reached through Twitter. You can reach her on her website, Build Your Best Life. You can reach her for purchase of her book. You can reach her for life coaching. You can reach her for mentorship. You can reach her because she is in contact with everyone else. How about that? If there is someone else that you are trying to reach, there is someone that you're looking for to speak in an engagement, or someone that would be able to share on a particular topic, then you can reach out to her for that also. But life coaching, youth mentorship, youth counseling, they are her strengths. Building your best life is not just a slogan, it is her lifestyle. If you are trying to reach me, I can be reached through Be Becoming. That would be on Facebook and on Instagram. And you leave me a message there and I will get back to you. I thank you again so much for having this conversation with me this evening, for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I hope that everybody enjoyed. Miss Deborah, like I said, I hope we did you proud. get better, take a lot of orange juice, sleep a lot, do whatever is needed and necessary, because the technical part of this thing, I did not know. You are a godsend to be able to do all of this every time that we get together. You are truly a godsend. And with that, see you guys next time.